custom interfaces. If you go to the standard interfaces, so these are the pre-built interfaces. So Lightning itself has given us some of the interfaces. So these are the standard. So let's say Lightning Action Override, Lightning App Home template. You can see the list of supported interfaces in Lightning. So, but our target is custom interfaces. So I want to build my own interface. So when you use the standard interface, it has some standard methods. It has some standard functionality where you can reuse it. So, but whereas in custom interfaces, you have to build your own code. So simply, an interface is nothing but. So what is an interface? So an interface is nothing but a collection of variables, methods which are not defined. An interface is a collection of, I can say, undefined variables. So here variables are nothing but attributes, and methods. So here methods are nothing but aura methods, and collection of registered events in Lightning. So we're talking about the Lightning interface. The Lightning interface is nothing but it has a collection of attributes, or collection of methods, collection of events, so which are not defined. So generally we use the interfaces just to define the attributes, methods, and events. So using an interface in Lightning, using an interface, we can only declare one is aura attributes. We can declare aura attribute. So we can declare aura method, and we can declare events. So generally these are the three areas we declare in an interface. So interface supports to declare aura attributes, aura methods, and aura register events. We'll go through one by one. So but these are the undefined variables. So what is the purpose of using an interface? So we use an interface when you define a structure to the application. So structure is nothing but what are all the variables that you want to reuse, what are all the methods that you want to declare. So generally, when it is a larger application, so what we will do, we will define the interfaces. The advantage of interfaces is it will maintain a common set of attributes and common set of methods. If you want to make your application more unique with the common variables and common methods, we go for the interfaces. So it doesn't have the definition; it has only the declarations. It is a skeleton of the application. The entire skeleton of the application we just declare in interfaces. It's not a mandatory to declare the interfaces in each program, so it's not a mandatory. So, but we want to define a structure. Let's say we are building a product. So, product has a different logic, and in order to build that logic, you may need a uniqueness. So, let's say you have some set of variables, and you want to use those variables in another component. So then the better approach is declare the interfaces. So when you have common set of variables, methods, which that needs to be used in multiple components, so we prefer interfaces. So interface supports three type of elements. So they are attributes, aura methods, aura events. So attributes are nothing but the component variables. So it's simply variables and methods. Even event is a method. So an interface is a collection of undefined variables and methods. Even so, if you remember the object-oriented programming concept, so you have the interfaces. So you have the interfaces in object-oriented programming language. So which is similar concept here also. The concept is the same, but in object-oriented programming, so let's say when you write a batch class or when you write a scheduling class, we need to implement interfaces. So for example, when you go to batch class, you have the standard interfaces. So you can see some of the interfaces called database.batchable interface. This is the standard interface. So what it does, it has some standard methods. So what are the standard methods it supports? It has a start method, it has a execute method, and it has a finish method. So these are the three methods. So and these are the mandatory methods. To write any batch class, we must define these three methods. So what is the purpose of defining? Because those methods are declared in that interface. So they are the pre-built interfaces. Salesforce is giving us some of the standard interfaces where you can implement in our code. So without interfaces, you cannot write the batch class. Without interfaces, you cannot write the scheduling class. And some of the operations you cannot perform without using the interfaces. Same way, in Lightning, we have the interfaces. So interface is collection of variables and methods which are not defined. So where we define those variables and methods. So we have to define those variables and methods whenever you implement that interface in any component. So when you define an interface, you need to, so the purpose is you need to implement it. So you can implement in any component, even it's not a mandatory to implement in each component. So when you want to use a common set of variables and methods in a component, so we look for the interface and we can implement that interface in that component. So let's go to the classic version once. So in classic version, you can define the classes. Let it be in the Lightning version. So you can define the code in dev console. I'm going to create I'm going to define one interface in Apex. This is a sample interface. So here is an interface. So interface has only declaration. So here method 1 and method 2 are two methods, and so if it is a class, we use a keyword called class. If it is an interface, we use a keyword called interface. So this has only declarations. So it has the declarations. So it has only declaration. So we don't provide any definition in the interfaces. So what we will do, so when you implement this interface in any class, just to copy it, I'm creating a class. So how can you implement? You have to use implements keyword and your interface name. Now this can be either a standard interface or the custom interface. So if you want to write a batch class, you have to implement database.batchable. So here is a custom interface. So when you define an interface, so when you save the class, it is simply throwing an error message. So class interface one class must be implemented with the method 1 and method 2, which means you must write the definition for those methods. You can write any code inside of it, but you must define that. See? So now there is no error. So which is nothing but, so an interface is a collection of undeclared, undefined methods. So when you implement that interface to any Apex class, you have to provide the definitions. So the same interface can be implemented to multiple classes. The same concept we can use in Lightning. So this is this server side code, the class level code. In object-oriented programming, so this is how the interface works. So, but in Lightning, so we're talking about the Lightning more into the UI part, not the server code. We are talking about the client-side code, that is the uh, JavaScript code. So in Lightning interfaces, so you can define the interface, and you can use those interfaces to any in any component. So let's take an example. Assume that, let's take a scenario. I have list of attributes and I have components. I have list of attributes. I have components. Components. So component 1, component 2. Components are with the customer details, and the customer details, or one is employee details. It's a component, and another component is company details. So what are the common attributes you can define here? So common attributes are nothing but a name, city, phone, country. So these are the common attributes. Let's go to one. Let's say I have an attribute called name. The employee has a name and company has a name, which is nothing but, so we require this. Yes. So we need it. Look at it. Why? And phone number. Both employee and company has a phone number, and city. Both has city. I mean address. And country. Both has country. So assume that there is one more attribute, employee count. Employee count, which is not specific to employee detail section. I don't need this, but in company detail section, I need it. And age. So age is nothing but, let's say age specific to an employee. And which is not required here. So let's take this example. So if you, in this example, there are common attributes, name, phone, city, and country. So these are the common attributes that are used in multiple components. So that are used in multiple components. So our concept is, first we'll go with the interface with the Aura attribute. We'll talk about the method and events again. Concept is interface with the Aura attribute. Because within an interface, so we can use attributes, methods, and registered events. So now we are going with the first concept, or interface with Aura attribute. So we declare different attributes here, and having the different components, component 1, component 2, and you may have a number of components. And whenever we have a common attributes. So here I can see some of the common attributes. So those common attributes can be declared in interfaces. I'm going to declare an interface with these common attributes. What are the common attributes here? So I have name, phone, city, and country, which are a common in both employee detail component and company detail component. So then employee count is the difference. Employee count is specific to only company detail component, and age is specific to only employee detail component. So whenever you have a common attributes in multiple components, we go for the interface. So I'm going to declare an interface now. You know how to declare an interface? Go to new, you have lightning interfaces. So you have the lightning interface. Just click on lightning interface. File new lightning interface. Say interface 1. So this is a lightning interface. So, but this is a concept similar to the interface in object-oriented programming, the class level interface. The same concept, but this is in the UI. This is related to uh, in RF framework. So you can declare a common attributes here. So one is the name, string, one attribute. You can declare the other attributes in the same way. Name, phone, string, city, string, country, string. This is an interface. This is an interface. So what I am doing here in this example, I just declared an interface with the following these attributes. This is an interface. This is it, interface declaration. In an interface, I declare these attributes. Now this is one component. This is component 1 and this is component 2. We have two components, component 1 and component 2. So what you have to do, so in order to, it's not required to declare the same attributes in each component. Because this is an interface. So these are the attributes declared in an interface. And these are the attributes declared in an interface. So what you can do, it's not required to declare the same attributes in each component. So you can implement it. So implements that interface 1. So when you implement that interface, so what you will get all those attributes directly in your component. So you need to implement this interface in both components so that this declaration part is not required. This is not required. When you implement it, this is also not required. When you don't implement that interface, it's required to declare. Because I want to reuse the attributes. I want to reuse the attributes in multiple components. So when you build an application, there can be some attributes which are common across the application. An application is a collection of components. So if you want to use common attributes, the advantage is you have the same naming conventions. You have the same variable names when you define an interface. You can reuse those interface attributes in multiple components, and those components can be used in a single application. So it's not required to declare these attributes again in each component. So because when you define an interface, you can reuse them. So I did that. So just created one interface with all these attributes. Now I'm going to declare a component, component for employee details. Lightning component, let's say interface 1, or can be employee details component. Now how can we implement this? So implement equal to C colon and your interface name, interface 1. C colon interface 1, and it has a controller and declaring another component, the company details component, and declare implements equal to C colon interface 1. So automatically all the attributes in the interface will be added to each component. Now what are the remaining attributes that you have to define? So in employee details section you have a component called age. Go to employee details, you have an attribute called age, which is a type of either string or number. And in company details you have an attribute called employee count. So we are done with the attributes declaration. Now I want to display the data. So I want to display the data when a component is loaded. So Aura handler, just using init handler. Load emp details, employee details. You know how to use the init. This is similar to the constructor action in component. So I have load employee details. I'm going to declare the same action here also, load company details, load employee details and load company details. Now I want to display the data, so I want to set the data to those attributes. So I have declared only one age attribute and 4 attributes are coming from interface. So I can initiate all the values, component dot set v dot name, name, employee name, set v dot phone, some phone number, component dot set v dot city, component dot set v dot country, component dot set v dot age. So we have to define. I just set the value to each attribute. The same way, I'll set the value to each attribute in another component. So this is specific to company information. What I can do, I'll use company details. This is employee count. So put some value, save it. So I'm trying to reuse the components. I'm trying to reuse the attributes. Now display those attributes in the onload. So both are onload actions. So we can take, let's use some CSS. Common CSS that we use. Margin left, margin top, width, what is the width, border, and also its lightning cost equal to employee details, specify common font, center font. Just want to display the date and details, employee name. So v dot is v dot name. So v dot name coming from interface. For city, country, age. This is name, city, name, phone, city, country, and age. Right? Right. Now copy the same. I want to use the same structure for company details also. It's the company name, and this is employee. Name, phone, city, and country. This is employee count. Employee count. It's employee count. So now I'm going to declare an application to call both components. This is the preview. So now you can see both components. One is employee details, where it has employee name, phone, city, country, and age. And company details, you have company name, phone, city, and country, and employee count. So here, these are the first four are the common attributes, and the remaining are different attributes. So when you have the common attributes, when you have the common attributes which are used across the application, so better we go with the interface. So otherwise you have to declare in each component. So this is the concept about using attributes within an interface. Right? Any questions?
Yeah, no, Venkat.